All right, welcome to Consult ROI podcast. I'm here with Danny today.
Hey,
and
what's
today,
up?
just to do a topic right off the cuff. We're going to do what is the ROI with AI. So
Catchy headline.
essentially, yeah, exactly. That is going to be the headline and the mantra here. Because everyone's kind of torn. Everybody has the value, and some people will say, hey, you should use AI for literally everything. And there's other people that say AI is the doomsday of humanity and it will replace your job and everything else. And then there's the others that say it's a joke. So really, where is the best ROI when it comes to AI? That's I know I have my opinion on it. I actually use it in certain aspects in that because it makes my job easier. Whether it's analyzing my schedule, whether it is coming up with ideas or getting over writer's block or stuff like that. But for me, the highest ROI has always been that it's a tool and an asset that allows you to get through and be more productive in different ways. In fact, I'll even use it. So if I'm pissed off or something and I want to write a more cordial email, I will literally write the email and then say, hey, I need you to make this more professional. And I will put it through the AI to have it rewrite that email for me and be a lot more polite than I have the capacity to be at that time. So,
Right. Yeah, no, that's it could be a good safety net, right? Because you don't want to if you're not looking to burn any bridges or offend people or whatnot, especially if you're caught up in the moment. Maybe I need some AI for sometimes managing my kids.
how to parent your kids that
how to take my anger frustration and put this friendly to a 5-year-old tone. Which you could do. You could absolutely do, right?
I don't recommend it all the time. There's definitely some times where it completely dilutes the message, but it still doesn't change that you can use it as a second opinion to check yourself or to get other things. And in fact, when I am trying to do social media posts, I will be like, hey, what's a topic currently on cybersecurity? And then I will have it list off a few topics, and then I'll choose one, research that a little bit, and go into it. I don't use AI to do the research, though. There's the difference, because AI definitely, I've found, especially when it is giving advice when it comes to security or other things, it has some very vague vanilla answers, and then some also really bad advice.
Sure. Right. So it's still more or less in its infancy. I mean, you could say as far as mainstream goes.
Well, and I mean, with any AI, with any tool, with any search engine, whether it's Google, Yahoo, or anything else, you have to understand who programmed it and the bias that comes with that. And if you understand the bias that comes with it, it also allows you to understand what perspective or what stance it's going to change, take on any issue. Like if I even write certain topics in a chat GPT, for example, they will automatically be I basically looked at hey, what is the most, so I was doing something more out of research curiosity. And I was like, okay, what is the most foundational moments or historical moments that directly correlated with the creation of the United States and it being the most independent superpower, and it gave me a list of historical events. And then I was like, okay, can you give me some elaboration on how some of these events gave basically that were such a pivotal moment? And it will actually say hey, we don't support this because it was an awful atrocity. I'm like, well, it still is important to know some of those things, but it will actually shut down and filter out a lot of that information, as opposed to, because and this is where the dangerous thing is with a lot of people, frankly, is we all have, there's that unfortunate mentality where people will think that the information is more harmful than the lack of information. And so that is where the negative ROI definitely comes into effect. So having that ability to ensure that that you are understanding the limitations of that. Like for example, for me, the ROI always has been, and like it's always been a higher ROI to have more information than it has been to have less, because you can filter through and throw out the garbage and determine like, hey, this holds factual grounds because this is supported by this evidence, as opposed to, hey, I'm just going to give you an answer and you're going to blindly accept it, which is what a lot of the tools that we put in, whether it's Google Assistant or Siri or Alexa or any of those, we just literally ask it a question and we blindly, blindly accept the answer. So this is going to have two different effects, right? One, it does allow expediting the access or information of knowledge, and that to get to where I can get a real quick answer, especially if I just need something basic like, okay, how many cups are in the quart, whatever, right? However, again, the other caveat of it is because when you become more reliant on technology, it reduces the critical thinking capability, which also means with every opposite, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if other people are using that more, you'll notice that the people that actually stand out and the people that are going to excel are the people that aren't using it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's quite something to think about. It kind of reminds me of, I know a friend of mine, their daughter teaches at the University of Utah, and they had a foreign exchange student who really struggled on a lot of their papers that they submitted. And once ChatGPT came out, all of a sudden this person is writing in perfect English, and as far as like how it's written, so to speak, for their papers, and they know that there's some assistance there going on, obviously, and it's something that the universities everywhere are going to have to figure out. How do we lean into this instead of ban it, block it, or whatever? Like it's not going to go anywhere, right? Like it's here to stay, and probably the heat's going to turn up on it and leveraging it more.
Well, one of the and this is like, the thing is everyone thinks that AI is somehow new, yet the military, intelligence, and everything else has been using AI for literally decades. Like that's what nobody wants to acknowledge. In that, I mean, even if you look at most hackers, they're using a web crawler script and everything, which is technically AI that finds creative solutions on how to get past things. That's the same thing that they've already created. So even that news, there's a recent news story where they talked about how they had a program specifically, it was supposed to accomplish a specific task. And there was specifically like little prompts and everything that the computer couldn't solve. And so the AI was smart enough to hire somebody to complete that for them. And then it even lied. And so when it asked, like the person had asked, like, hey, why are you needing me to do this? Like, are you just a bot or something? It said, no, I have a disability, like a learning disability that makes it very hard for me to see this. And so I just need you to complete these tasks for me.
No kidding.
So like in which, like, everyone's like, oh, that's really scary. I'm like, well, I mean, yes and no. There's a lot of benefits for it because it will help people that do have disabilities to accomplish tasks. They can basically say what they want done and have it done. We could have an AI assistant that could literally create or complete redundant tasks for us day in and day out, saying, hey, I need you to complete the bookkeeping. And because it's a computer as opposed to a person, it's less prone to human error.
Right. So, I mean, along those lines, right? Like being able to like reduce the amount of human error in certain tasks, I think is great. I mean, we're seeing that a lot in medical side of things, right? I think I was recently, actually, I was in Boston at the headquarters of a leading AI company, and some of that's actually been in the industry for over a decade, and really helped standardize. Harvard and MIT graduate helped standardize the standard of care for cardiovascular health. Now they're taking that into things like breast exams and into the dental industry and other areas. And as I think you said it best earlier, as a great second opinion. And that's also been like a fear of approaching professionals with it is, well, now what's my job? I'm the professional here. Is this going to take this away from me? And I think that remaining in control of that, or kind of being that front person to say, you're the expert, but get that second opinion from 100,000 images of that same exact thing that might concur with what you're saying. I think that's quite remarkable, and can only, I would think, could only help improve healthcare in this example.
Yeah. Well, like, for example, even in healthcare. And granted, there's already companies that are doing this, right? And so if you have an AI bot that, like, for example, is running a corporation, like it's doing management tasks of a corporation, and its sole job is to create revenue for the company. If it doesn't have accountability metrics put into place, that can get really bad really quick. Mm-hmm. And you'll already have people that will and have consistently made really bad decisions for public health or whatever else in the sake of profit and showing better return to its investors. But again, where we're talking about strictly is, like, yes, there do need to be some kind of safety measures or disclosures or other things that need to happen to prevent fraud or other things, and allow us to make educated decisions on it. But this AI is showing more than ever the importance of not only learning a specialized skill set ourselves, but to also be able to hire or teach our kids the skill sets that are going to make them valuable, right? That is our job as parents, really, is to make them the most socially valuable people ever. Whether that is making them able to be a doctor, whether that is making them a programmer, whether that's helping them, like, whatever their passion is, that's irrelevant and everything. But you can be a specialist in any field you want. And you might say, well, I hate school. I didn't do well in it. And the school system right now is a joke, which I could agree with. But that's, again, where your responsibility is. There's plenty of ways to learn things. There's plenty of different ways to become resourceful and to be able to build things and know how to use AI right now. Because right now we're on the precipice of a new kind of generation or a new era. We had the .com era. We had the crypto and NFTs. Now we're kind of in the AI.
That
so
next
this
big thing.
trend that you can take advantage of it. But just like all other things, if there's not logical foundation behind it, like when most people are exercising over enthusiasm, that's usually a good idea to exercise more caution. And if ideas seem too good to be true, it usually is, right?
Yeah, I think you make a good point of, really kind of, adding that caution to it, specializing in a skill. There's someone, Ryan Stewman, he says, if salespeople are going to be replaced by robots, I want to be the one selling the robots, right? So when you kind of mention like that specialized skill, like, why not, get behind it and leverage it, but have a skill set behind it that could lead up to it, that could only enhance what you're doing to make what you're doing, even better.
Well, it's the same thing with everything, right? So, and this is where I like to press this, like AI. Yes, I absolutely 100% see that there is a significant red flag when it comes to certain things. Like, if you built an AI that could literally control or put different software on different devices and create a list of anybody that had a differing ideology than what you agreed with or anything else, and could attack that person, go after their profiles, do other things, and use it for more terroristic threats and other actions that can be used against significantly for significant harm. They've already been using it in other countries, and that they've even used it in our country, frankly, for propaganda and other stuff, which is how they spread fake news. So if you look at psychological warfare, they've always used AI and like soapboxes. So even if you go clear back to the 1800s, news and media was always used as kind of that ability to spread a message, because they understood that people were usually too lazy to do their own research, and they would believe whatever was being told by the person on the soapbox. So that's why it's like, get off your soapbox. That's where that whole saying came from. And so they're doing the same thing, but they're just having an AI or a bot, and that redundantly put out all this information in excess to the point that people actually believe it, as opposed to researching for themselves. So kind of the point being is, I see that there's a significant harm there that can exist. But again, and it comes down to like, it's always that conversation as like for example, even the new car I bought, right? It has all the bells and whistles. It can drive, it can park itself, it can do all these things. And I can connect to with my phone. I can, anywhere in the world, I can verify if the doors are locked, where the location is, everything else. But because I can do that, it also means somebody else can do that.
Sure.
Somebody else could shut off my car. Somebody else could take control of it. They could do everything else. That is part of what comes with it. So what point does convenience outweigh the loss of freedom? Because that's what it is. One side of the fulcrum point is convenience. So the more convenience you have, the less freedom you have. That's really what it comes down to. Because right now, for example, there's a lot of softwares that are out there that are now paid monthly. And the moment that you stop paying monthly, you lose pretty much everything. It's a pretty standard thing. And so massive convenience and that, but the moment you stop paying, loss of everything. So everything was proprietary, everything, you basically lose all of that. So they can essentially hold you hostage by that tool that they're giving you for that convenience. So the ROI to me is always, I will always kind of shy towards, like, I believe that AI, frankly, should be limited as a tool for us. But again, defining where that it stops being a tool and starts becoming more of a massive weapon, that's really hard. That's really hard to define. That's really hard to kind of differentiate. But for this podcast, we're talking more specifically on how it can be a business asset to you.
Right. And let's talk about how to leverage that as an asset. So one of the things that I do with websites, for example, and we've got an AI writer built into it, which is great from a search engine optimization standpoint, because what business owner has the time to go and write up articles and insights about their product, services, and industry to earn trust and credibility with Google? Most of them just don't, and they're never going to do it. But Google needs that type of validation that's out there from third-party links, linking from their sites back, other third-party sites back to the main site. And that's what helps build that trust and credibility. And so I think that leveraging that as an ROI for, business purposes and getting found and kind of growing your customer base on Google, that's one, positive benefit of that, is that it could do. The flip side of that is, well, what about all these people that are actual expert content writers and stuff like that? Are they, out on the curb because of AI? Maybe. Or is it that they're the ones taking control of that, and they're now being able to do more with the time and expertise that they have?
Yeah. I mean, again, AI is very limited because it's basically, it's only as good as the data pool it's pulling from. So, for example, I could have an AI right now write a bunch of bogus and everything that is absolutely not true, but because I have it post enough places, enough backlinks and everything, even according to Google's AI, it will actually deem that source as credible and truthful information, even though it's absolute horse crap, and dictate that as the answer.
Well,
right?
I mean, pause for that for just a second, because that kind of reminds me of, when I took a business law class, I was actually quite surprised many years ago to learn that the law wasn't necessarily black and white and what's right and wrong. It's who sued who and who won. And so who won, ends up being, the law. And so therefore, like, ends up being like the norm and the way, right? not necessarily because it's right or wrong, but who sued who and who won. And we could easily see something like that happening with AI and, content and postings, right?
Well, we've already seen kind of how it's played out in the justice system, and that where our justice system even is a joke on that front. It's very skewed, and it's like, luckily, most people have never had the pleasure of dealing with that side of the justice system. But if you do, unfortunately, there is definitely a fine line where a lot of things that you think would be should be common sense and that aren't, and what's ethical and just isn't what's practiced in law. And that's where it comes down to, because again, there's some, like, a lot of the reason that we have most of the fees and other stuff is because of, well, we've got away with it for so long. Why can't we? Now we can. So that's where having to pay not only income tax, but also sales tax, and also purchasing tax and inheritance tax, and all these fees, and registering our vehicles, and all these other things that our tax dollars that they're taking in the first place should accommodate and cover in the first, like from the beginning. But because we've let it get away so long and we've sat in comfort and everything, that is where, and that's what I would like to see avoided with AI. But again, right now, it is a tool, an asset that you would be very ill-advised to avoid or taking advantage of, right? And so, like a writer, if you were a creative writer, you can use it to get through and find different viewpoints of an idea that helps stimulate. It's the same reason that you surround yourself with other people with different viewpoints, even if it's a completely contradicting or idiotic ideology. They can still give a perspective that you wouldn't have thought of, and get you further down the road, right? And that is really where AI is right now. And that is where, so you don't have to worry about it necessarily replacing you. But as you use it as a tool, at least as an asset, not a replacement. Because if you use it as a replacement, everyone's going to take your lunch. Because, and there's going to be certain people that will develop AI, right? And they'll flood the market. Then people will get a reality check and see, like, hey, that's unethical, that's nonsense. And then you'll have a bad name in business, frankly. It's kind of the same thing as the people that ignore the do not call registry for spam calls, right? Do you want to be known as just the spammy company that calls or has a robot call 5 billion different people day in and day out, nonstop pestering them? Or do you want to build an empire that actually is shown to have a great reputation, have a great set of core values, and build truly an empire of people that are avid believers in what you are building, right? Your company, whether it's a medical firm or whether it's a lawyer firm or whatever it may be, I'd much rather have passionate individuals that fit the culture than scammy people that have no ethics or morals, because those people sooner steal from you than ever help you, right?
Yeah,
it's very
longevity there.
Yeah. So you might win in the short term, but you will not win in the long term. That's just how it plays out. Those companies will, again, they've always, and granted, I mean, that this is getting into a really deep topic and everything, where a lot of people that have gotten away with a lot of atrocities and everything have come from essentially blood money and some of that other stuff. But again, what we are trying to do is, at the end of the day, none of the stuff that we've built in this world, and that is going to come with us. So what type of person do you want to be known for or remembered on your tombstone? Just that you built an empire and that, and you made a lot of money screwing over people? Or do you want
build a real legacy?
But you made a significant impact for the better. And that's really, it's a conversation for yourself, right? I can't tell you what that's going to be. There's going to be people that use some of this information for good, just as much as there's people that will probably use this for very bad, negative, selfish gain. And that's a universal principle that applies to all things in life.
Yeah, and that's something that if you haven't thought about, what is your legacy or whatnot. Some people will write their own eulogy and work backwards from there about what good they want to bring to the world. And how people perceive that legacy is, all you can do is control what you're doing with yourself and your life, and the things in your mind and things that you're doing. But then the legacy is left for those you've left behind to interpret. Pick up the pieces, move on, and what would you want to be remembered by? So, yeah, interesting stuff for sure.
I know it's definitely pivoted off of the original topic of the AI, but it is true that it's still related. And I think that if you can understand that everything is correlated between actions and consequences, long-term effect, short-term effect, and relying something, because there's a difference too between like using a calculator, right, to completely do all the thinking for you versus using it as a tool to try to get it completed faster and double check your work, right?
Yep.
And there's benefits to both sides. So you can use a calculator and rely on it day in and day out and everything, and it'll be fine for basic numbers and that, because your skill set is somewhere else, right? Because you're not an accountant, you're not this other person, you don't really care about like the numbers. However, when you use it as a complete, and this is kind of the balance. When a calculator no longer is a calculator, it's basically something that talks back and then feeds you whatever response it thinks that you want to hear. It now is no longer just spitting out 2 + 2 = 4. It says 2 + 2 = well, what do you want it to say?
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. So yeah, I think that's leveraging AI in the way that's going to benefit you, your customer base, find an ROI that helps you be a little bit quicker, more efficient, but still achieving the main goals of what you're set out to do and serving the needs of your customers is what's going to be key in really driving that and finding those efficiencies and those automations and things to kind of free up your time to maximize that. And
so if anything out of this podcast, frankly, the main thing that I want you guys to take away is you can use it as like almost a scheduler or something, more logical tasks that aren't open to like some really bad information or getting a bad reputation for you in your industry, right? Because if I have it write all of my social media posts, all of my other stuff, it usually will look really generic, overly formal. It will look empathetic.
It's not your tone or personality in it, right?
Exactly. It basically dilutes who you are as a person, dilutes your brand, dilutes everything. But what you can use it for is like I do, where I will say, hey, I have all of these tasks in a row, and that these are the biggest priorities and everything else. Create a task list in that, or an order of priorities and that for me to knock out. Or, hey, here's all the things I need to accomplish. What is this? Or, hey, I need to write this. Give me some ideas on what to do or write on this. And it will literally give me, again, a full to-do list or write out my schedule and everything to make sure that I do something. Because if I sit there and be like, well, because this is something I even suffer with, which I will overthink things. But if I just put it through an AI that doesn't really think, it just processes and regurgitates an answer, even if it's not the best answer, it still is at least giving me a template that I can follow, tweak and everything, and at least execute upon. So instead of just sitting there mulling it over and saying, oh, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? Whatever else. I just get a plan. I start executing tasks, getting at least some traction moving forward, and then I can always pivot or re-input information into it later, right?
Sure.
But at least it's getting the ball rolling. And that's where, again, this is. If you're stuck, if you're trying to figure something out, at least use it to get the ball rolling. Yeah. That's really the ultimate ROI with AI.
Love it. Oh, good stuff.
All right. Sweet. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. If there's any other topics that you guys would like to see, be sure to comment and add them, or message us on the show, whatever platform you're using. Feel free to do that, so that way we can have the topic or get a little bit more in depth. I know this one was, again, a little all over the place, but again, understand that the ROI for me is not going to be the same ROI for you. So you have to, basically, we're just arming you with the equation of 2 + X = 4. Solve for X. What is X for you?
That's right.
All right. Catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks, you guys.